Held at the Centerville City Hall at 7 p.m. We had a nice work session before and also an RDA meeting, and we were pleased that we got through those in time with some minutes to spare so we could get going on time tonight. This is our second meeting as combined hybrid and in person. So let's start by doing a roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Fillmore.
Present.
Councilmember Ince.
Present.
Councilmember Meekum.
Present.
Councilmember McEwen.
Present.
And Councilmember Ivy.
Present.
All five present with us in person. Thank you for joining us. The first thing we want to do is we want to have a prayer or thought from Councilmember Ince.
I am reminded today of the blessing in each of our lives that we live in a very well-developed community with a police department which is without equal, in my opinion. I can't count the number of instances that I'm aware of where they have helped people out above and beyond. With the fire department, which protects us, and with the public works department, which gives us water, sewer, roads, and other things, and makes our life easier. And so, before we do a prayer tonight, I would like to say thank you to each of them for the service and the blessing that they are in our lives. And I would like to offer a prayer to start. Our Father which art in heaven, we bow our heads before thee this evening and give thanks for the community that we live in, for the freedom that we enjoy, for the country that we are citizens of. We pray, Father, that thy blessings will be on our country and on our city, that thy Spirit might quiet discontent, help people to cooperate and extend their hand to their neighbor, and have us all be more brotherly in our actions. We pray that thy Spirit will be with us as we are in this meeting this evening, that we might be able to be understanding, that we will be considerate, and that we will have thy guidance in the decisions which are made, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you'd all rise with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for displaying the flag on the screen. It's nice to stand and look at the flag rather than have it be at my belly button, which it's been in so many meetings, so it's nice to look up to it. But it was nice that we've had that to where we've had on the screen as well, and continue for those that are joining us by Zoom or YouTube. The next item on our agenda is the open session. This is where we have the ability, those that are in person, to come to the microphone and discuss anything with us, and those that are by Zoom, we will look to see if you raise your hand or if you call in. If you'll help me, Jennifer, in looking at raising the hands, because I can't turn mine on without causing the static or the screeching sound. But so this is the open session. Discuss anything you want. Other than we do have, I guess we don't have any. Any others on? So anything that you want to discuss, so that they just keep your comments to 2 or 3 minutes and tell us your name and where you're from. So the open session is now open. Come on up.
My name is Don Barton. I was born and raised here in Centerville. Currently a resident of Logan, and hopefully at some point I'll be a Centerville resident again. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. In the 2 or 3 minutes I have, I really can't make my case, so I prepared a letter for each member of the council. Robin Meekum has that, and she will pass that out at the appropriate time. Some time ago, the council, I assume it was this council, passed an ordinance which prohibits the installation of pre-need stones, monument stones in the cemetery, and until there's a death in the family and that grave is opened, and then it can be installed. Now, I've had the reasoning explained to me very clearly by two different people in the city, and I think I thoroughly understand the reasoning. And certainly Centerville City is not alone with cemetery filling up and plots being next to each other in a very close manner. But I think from a citizen standpoint, there's a couple of points. Actually, there's 3 or 4 points that I made in the letter, and I'm not going to go through those other than the last one, which I think probably is the most important, and that's the cost. Last year, well, first of all, we retired a couple of years ago. We had always wanted to put our stone on our plots. The plot that's in our family has been owned, by the way, since 1938. There's 8 spots. 4 of those spots are filled, and the other 4 will be filled probably in just a few short years. Last year, we learned about this ordinance when we went to the monument store to pick out something, and we had it designed and produced. And then we were informed, and so that's when I checked with the city and got the explanation. But my wife and I decided that we wanted to have that stone put together and fixed anyway. And so it's currently being stored in my daughter's garage up in Farmington. It weighs 870 pounds, by the way. In addition to that monument stone that cost $3,200, we also have to add a base stone and also a granite slab, and that's going to be another $2,000. Now, just a few weeks ago, I talked to Mr. Bott over at the monument store, and he said that since the first of the year, prices have gone up between 5 and 7%. And we know what's happened to lumber and concrete and everything else. So if we wait for the next 10 or 15 years until we need it, that $2,000 could easily double in price. So what I'm asking in the letter is that the city council just simply review and see if there isn't a way that we can work together and permit the pre-need stones to be installed in the cemetery. And I put some comments in there that I think would help the city as well to help cover some of their costs on that. So that's really all I have to say. Is there any questions at this point? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We will look at that letter that she passes out. I don't believe it was this council that decided on that. Was it? Okay, so we'll look at that. And thank you for coming down from Logan to join us today. Open session is still open for those that want to come to the mic or call in. Raise your hands. Jennifer, do you see any hands being raised since I can't pull it up on my computer? Okay. And if that's the case, then we will close the open session and we'll move on to the business of the meeting. The first item is a public hearing. This is a zone map amendment with the Pasture Business Park. And do we have Mackenzie, you're going to present on that?
Yes, I am. I'm on Zoom. Can you hear me?
We can, yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So this item was seen before the Planning Commission on April 28th. I'm going to share my screen if you'll let me know if you can see it properly.
It's up now.
Okay, thank you. So highlighted in the staff report in red on this map, so this is the Salmon HVAC property called Pasture Business Park, and it is just west of Legacy Parkway, on the very west side of the city. And this portion in red was owned by UDOT and sold to Salmon HVAC, and it is currently unzoned. I didn't realize there was any zones in the city that didn't have a zoning designation, but it seems most of them are along the freeways. So Salmon HVAC was able to purchase this from UDOT, and they, as you can see in this small map, they intend to make it part of the Pasture Business Park, but in order to build on any parcel of land, it needs to be zoned for the use. And so this parcel needs to be given a designation, and so the applicant, Craig Salmon, requested that it be zoned to match the surrounding Shorelands Commerce Park. The Planning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of this rezone, and City Attorney Lisa Romney has drafted Ordinance 2021-13 to, if you also approve it, to update the zoning map to include this parcel 06-003-0055 into the Shorelands Commerce Park. Do you have any questions for me?
Doesn't appear so right now. Possibly McKinsey stay with us after the public hearing. Is there anybody from the applicant that wants to talk about this before we move to the public hearing? Guess not. So let's move to the public hearing on this. This is a public hearing for the zone map amendment at the Pasture Business Park. So this public hearing will just be to just discuss that matter. So the public hearing is now open. And we will give it, in case those online are going to respond, 30 seconds or so for it to catch up. And on your screen, there's a dial-in number as well too. I'll use assistance for anybody that might be raising their hand from staff to let me know.
Mayor, it just pulled up on YouTube just now.
Oh, that's why we wait, right? Yeah. It's on Zoom quicker than it's on YouTube, but it's now up on YouTube too, the number. This is the public hearing on the zone map amendment of Pasture Business Park. If anybody is joining us and wants to call in or raise their hand, or in person wants to come to the mic. Okay, I don't have any raised hands, do I, or phone-ins? What you guys can see. And I don't have anybody coming up front, so I will close the public hearing on this matter, and we will go back to if there is any questions from council to McKinsey or the applicant. I guess the applicant hasn't joined us, but questions from McKinsey?
I felt this one was really straightforward. I would motion that we adopt ordinance 2021-13.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Fillmore?
Aye.
Councilman Ince?
Aye.
Councilwoman Meekum?
Aye.
Councilman McEwen?
Aye.
and Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Let's go to item number 3. This is the fireworks restrictions area, and we have our fairly new chief, Chief Stone from the South Davis Metro Fire Service area, here with us, and we've also had Lisa, our city attorney, pop on the screen. But Chief, we'll let you start out, and I don't know if you and Lisa prepared a PowerPoint together or what you're doing, but.
We didn't, Lisa
Okay.
and I didn't coordinate this.
Oh, I
very
thought
well,
we
so-
did.
Oh, well, you're right, sorry, Lisa, I didn't want to throw you under the bus. It was me, it was mine. You did a great job. I was the one who failed, so. No, council and mayor, thank you for allowing me to come. It's great to be here in person. We've talked before, and it's good not to be on Zoom for me personally, so I appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you. We have discussed this with, I've discussed this with Brant and sent him the letter, with Lisa as well. And looking at what we've done in the past, then with the fire restrictions, I don't see a need to change the restrictions as what we've kept in the past. I think that you have the map, and I don't know if we can put the map up on the screen if you want to do that, or if Lisa has it, she might have it too. But the map is going to be the same then as last year. We obviously, we're in a drought. We don't have, if you look up on the hill, the snowpack is gone. And so it's a concern, and fireworks are always a concern. And if we can keep them down below the foothills, then it makes my job a lot easier, and our firefighters' job a lot easier. So I have put this together, this letter to Brant and to the city, and this is the map, which I said is the same as we've done in the past. So the state statute just says that we should follow, a line or something linear that the public can identify with or the police can enforce. And Centerville gets a little bit tricky in some of the areas, especially in the northern part, but I believe that the police are familiar with it. The public should be familiar with it. There is no change than there was last year. So I feel that is a good thing as well. So other than that, I don't have much else in regards to the restrictions unless you have questions for me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, Chief, does this always in effect, or does it end at a certain period of time? And
The fireworks just goes into effect, Mayor, from July 2nd, from the time we can start them to July 5th, and July 22nd to July 25th. And
Because
then
that's the time legally the state says.
that's when the
so.
state will allow us to, or allow everybody to,
Okay.
so.
So the chief and I were speaking before the meeting, and Lisa, I know we've had this discussion before about conspicuous posting of this map with retailers who are selling fireworks within the city. Did we ever convert that into an ordinance requirement that they have to display this map?
We generally rely on state statute, so if the state statute requires them to, but I have not been involved in requiring that. I doubt we put that in our ordinance.
I think
But
it's
we would just
supposed to
rely on
be
state
where
law.
they're sold.
Yeah,
what
it
it's
is
saying.
state
I
law.
think there is some.
I think there is a state statute
requirement
that
from the
has to be,
state.
So they
posted
have to
where
post when you can discharge them, how, you can't discharge them from or around there. As far as the map goes in each individual city, I am not aware of that, but I did talk to Councilman McEwen. I'll definitely follow up with our fire marshal to make sure that's the case. I know we obviously have North Salt Lake and Bountiful that both have restrictions as well, and I know that they're not posted in their fireworks stands. I love the idea. I will not tell you that I don't. In the past, we have not had this on our website. After tonight, we will, if you approve it, we will have it on our website so people can refer it. If you want to put it on your website that people can go to that, then we'll have it there as well, the map, so they can see it. But
Yeah, and for me, it's for those of us who are watching the Hillside Fire in real time at the command post, the idea of requiring conspicuous posting of this map and looking for strict enforcement, especially in a high drought year, it just seems like it only makes sense that we require that. So if it isn't a matter of state statute, I'd really like staff to look at what we can do to make sure that any retailer in the city has that displayed. I mean, obviously, they could buy their fireworks in a different city, but
No.
we're making best efforts inside our own city where we can.
I do believe it would help, and I'm not 100% sure, but to have those signs also, on those streets that says, you can do that just to, and that's the nice thing about doing historically, that we look back and say, hey, it's been this way, this hasn't changed, we haven't changed the restrictions for years. I went back quite a ways just to make sure, and it's been this same line for quite a while, but I do believe that does help, but I absolutely, any kind of notification is going to be beneficial to the citizens, so. I will follow up, I've already written down, so.
Thank you, and I see Brant's scribbling some notes too, so between the two of you, I'm sure we'll come up with, if there's action needed by the council, we can get that for the next agenda so that we can put it in before, let's see, fireworks stands are going to be going up pretty soon anyway, so we don't have a lot of time.
I think I wrote it down just on when they can start selling on the 24th of June. They usually don't, but they, usually it's the last week of June that they start to really kind of amp up, so.
So Brant, if we could turn that around for the next meeting, since we don't have that much time?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was just going to text Lisa to see if she's researching it right now.
I would suggest that if we're doing that and having our vendors sell, that we also post maps of those other cities as well too in the fire district area.
So
And even though Farmington's not part of us, we maybe, if they have restrictions up on there. So, because people aren't that buy them here aren't necessarily just gonna set them off in Centerville,
Right.
so.
Our map of Bountiful City is on our website, Mayor, because they have, North Salt Lake has a city ordinance that it just runs every year. We don't have to approve it every year, but, and I know that theirs is on their website as well, and then it references to our website as well. So, but I agree with you. Some of your citizens might buy it, their fireworks on 4th North and not have that knowledge, so.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a great point, Mayor. I mean, the fire didn't respect city boundaries, so.
It does not, no.
as we learned a couple of years ago, when it came to Bountiful and Centerville,
Yes.
yep. Lisa, you popped on, did you want to say something, or?
Yes, I just wanted to comment. We do bring this up every year because the state statute on these, we have to establish that there's a hazardous condition, and the statute requires us to prove 2 out of the 5 preceding years that the hazardous condition exists. And my preference is just to, have the fire department come and present each year and make sure that we're analyzing that, so we don't miss that. So, but we do have it permanently in our code, and that map is in our code. We're just justifying that the hazardous conditions still exist and that we have dry grasslands on the foothills.
And that's exactly what Lisa and I talked about in our, when we sat down and talked about this. So you're right on, Lisa. Thank you, for reminding me about that, so.
Thanks, Lisa. Was there more, Chief?
I have nothing else, Mayor, unless anybody else has any questions for me or.
Any other questions? Before the chief steps away from the mic, because I don't think he's going to stay to the end, part of my report later in the meeting.
I'm staying, I'll stay.
Are you going to stay? Well, no, you don't have to stay. I can.
I don't get an opportunity to come, so it's,
It's harder for him to mute his video, but, we'll still see him.
so I plan on staying.
All right, so you'll get things later, okay?
Okay.
All righty.
All right,
But
thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for presenting. All right, let's go to item number 4. This is Momentum Recycling presentation. This was initiated by Jacob Smith, and I think we have a representative from Momentum as well, too. So which one of you want to kick off and present? Jake? And will you introduce your guest, too, and bring him up?
Yeah, a little while ago, we were presented with an exciting opportunity for the city, and that is to recycle glass. I know there's been some requests from a lot of residents, from some of you to look into that opportunity. And Momentum Recycling actually approached us about the service that they provide. They provide it in a lot of cities, some of our neighboring cities. And Jason is here for Momentum to present this opportunity that we have here in Centerville.
Thank
It says I'm connected here, but I'm not sure if it's, oh, there we go.
Way to use that floor. I've never seen that used before. So I've learned something new. Thanks for coming just for that.
Recycling folks are resourceful, so. Well, thanks for your time this evening and for the opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about Momentum Recycling's curbside glass recycling program. I'll make sure that you all get a copy of this afterwards. It's very visual in nature, so I'll move fairly quickly, but can ask questions at the end. So I'll tell you a little bit about Momentum Recycling, go over why you should recycle glass. I think it's obvious for some folks and not so much for other folks, and then talk about the curbside program, how it's being offered currently in other municipalities, and then talk about the Centerville City program. So Momentum Recycling, it was founded in 2008. We're based right here in Salt Lake City. If you've flown in and out of Salt Lake City, you've flown right over our facility. We're only a recycling collections service provider. When we first started, we hauled mixed recycling, glass recycling, and green waste. And at the time, we realized that we were taking the glass, the outfit, the company wasn't able to harness the volume, wasn't transparent about where the glass was going, and wasn't creating a high quality end product for local Utah industry to use. And so to that avail, the family that started Momentum Recycling built a glass recycling facility where it's at today in 2012. Still to this day, we are the only glass recycling facility in all of Utah. We're actually the only one within about 350 miles of here. So we take in glass as far away as Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or Idaho, Kanab, Moab. We also operate the only glass recycling facility in Colorado as well. We currently service about 800 commercial customers, and we just surpassed the 10,000 household mark with the program that I'm talking to you about this evening. So why recycle glass? One of the main things I'd like folks to know is that we go out of our way to hire individuals that face a barrier to employment, mainly through our partnership with Odyssey House. We also, and that really take pride in that. Another thing too about glass recycling that I want to point out is that what actually goes into making glass. So it's not just sand, there's also limestone in there, there's cullet, which is recycled glass, borax, dolomite, and soda ash. And that's a key component because there's only one deposit of soda ash in all of North America. It happens to be based in Green River, Wyoming, so it's fairly close, but it only has about 50 years left on that deposit until soda ash has to be sourced from outside of North America. So recycling glass, to the point of it being endlessly recyclable, glass can be recycled right back into a glass bottle endlessly with no loss to the purity or the quality of the glass itself. So unlike paper or cardboard or aluminum or other recyclables, glass has that ability to just be turned right back into glass endlessly. So what is accepted in the bins? Basically all of your bottle glass you have at home, any glassware, and then obviously anything that contains food. A lot of confusion sometimes we see mirrors in there, we see light bulbs, some ceramics and porcelain. I'll address the elephant in the room and say that you don't have to drink alcohol to participate in this program. We see a lot of containers that in our glass recycling pile that are not alcohol. There are a lot of baby food jars. The reason why there's a lot of baby food jars is because glass is the safest container to put food in. It doesn't leach any contaminants or chemicals into the food. So we see a lot of baby food jars. We see a lot of pasta jars, olive oil, etc. So what happens to the glass? We have specially designed trucks that we use to transport the glass to our facility. We're only about 15 minutes away from here. I'll show you pictures of that facility as well. It's processed in what's known as cullet. That's just a fancy word for recycled glass. And then there's multiple end uses. So predominantly it goes down to southern Utah, to Nephi, to be made into fiberglass insulation. It's also used for sandblasting media as well as bottle making. One key thing here is that for this whole operation to work is that we have to have local industry that buys this cullet from us. Glass is very heavy. It can't be shipped a long ways. And so when the China ban happened, everyone asked, well, how did that impact glass recycling? Well, it didn't, because you'd have to be crazy to ship glass all the way back to China to be recycled. So I wanted to just make sure anybody here, anybody listening, you're always welcome to come tour our facility. It's not being dumped in the desert. You can show up tomorrow morning. I'd be happy to give you a tour. So come by at any time and you have my contact information. So the curbside program. So we'll talk about how it's modeled, existing programs, and then Centerville City's program. So it'll be a dedicated website. It's already live, actually, if you go to that directly to that URL. It's an optional program, so you can sign on at any time and sign off. It's just kind of like your Netflix or your gym membership, essentially. It's a one-time activation fee of $25 up front for the cart to be made and delivered to your home, and then it's just $8 a month after that. When you cancel, there's no cancellation fee or anything like that. It's just $8 a month from there on forward. So you sign up online. Since it is only a once-a-month collection, we do provide a notification system that will send you either an email, a phone call, or a text message reminder the day before your pickup. We also have a mobile app, so if you want to have the app on your phone send you a notification, you can do that as well. You receive your bin in about 7 to 10 days. It's about 38 inches high. It's smaller. It's a 35-gallon. I know your cart at home is probably a 90 to 105-gallon for comparison's sake. And then again, no contracts. This is month to month. This is provided to the residents at no cost to the city. We cover everything from the labor, fuel, maintenance, delivery, everything. The city has no cost associated with this program. So where is it happening right now? We initially started off in Salt Lake City. We expanded with the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District down all the way through Cottonwood Heights and then over to Taylorsville, and we're working on further expanding it with them. We then expanded to Park City, and then Sandy, then Draper, and now this year we're trying to extend it up through Centerville, and then in the second phase, hopefully as far north as Ogden in the next year here. So you can see the cities that we've been working with already this year there. There's been steady growth in these programs. They seem to just kind of, if you see any big spikes, that's when we actually go out and do outreach. Usually it's during the summertime when we can go, knock on people's doors, go to events, that type of thing. So they've all steadily grown. And then kind of a comparison to how the existing programs look. We're hoping to get about 1% participation rate in the city just to start. That's 50 households. Right now we have about 20 leads in our system of people that went out of their way to contact us on our website. We've done no advertising or surveys or anything like that. And then again, I think with the city's help, and I realized this with Sandy City. When we launched their program, we were on the front of the newsletter one month. That gave us a good boost. The mayor came out a couple months later for a tour, and that was another good boost. And just that was all the city really had to do. Just let residents know about the program. So they love it. As folks have relocated from Salt Lake City to other neighboring cities, they've been asking a lot of the time, why is this not available now in my city? So it's kind of spreading across the valley, and that's why we're trying to expand the program to service those residents. We estimate there's about 1.2 million pounds of glass in Centerville City's waste stream every year. That's just based on 70 pounds of glass per person being generated each year. So how do we do it in Centerville City? Well, the first thing we have to do is review some proposed amendments to the Chapter 7 of the city's code. They are probably the easiest amendments that I have looked at in any city code. This city's code is actually very well written, as I was just telling these guys before the meeting. And then we did propose a contract with the city that basically identifies Momentum Recycling as the city's authorized agent to provide collection service for just source-separated glass. So the first of the two proposed amendments, this one's pretty easy. Glass is still considered garbage. We would like to see that reclassified as a recyclable material. Pretty simple change to make. The second one relates to the agreement. The collection of solid waste has to be done by the city or its agent, and we are neither one of those. So that's where we had the proposed agreement that I think Lisa, it's already been shared with Lisa, but I can also provide another copy of that. So the general terms of the agreement basically clarifies that the city has no financial obligations related to the service, has no administrative responsibilities associated with the service, but it does set requirements for us as the service provider along the lines of performance and professionalism, insurance and indemnification requirements, guaranteeing can-to-curb assistance for any disabled resident that already receives that type of service from the city, cleaning up spilled glass, ensuring that the glass is actually recycled at our facility, those types of things. One final note, Ace Recycling fully endorses Momentum Recycling's program. We've worked with them in a lot of cities as they are the city's existing contractor right now. This is a letter of approval from them. I know that went pretty quickly, but I wanted to keep it short for you. Any questions?
I've got one for you.
Yeah.
So in the recycling business where you're not requesting the residents do any pre-cleaning, what's your waste stream look like? How much water are you using? What are you discharging from your facility?
That's a great question. We see less than 4% contamination in our inbound stream, which is actually really high in terms of industry standards. We don't require the residents to rinse out the containers or remove the labels. That's actually done in the process. With the technical term, it's a fluidized bed dryer. It's basically a big air hockey table, if you will. The glass is heated up to 190 degrees, so we don't melt anything. We don't give off any emissions. We actually don't use any water in our process to clean it. In that heat process, that's enough to melt the adhesive that holds the labels on. So as it shuffles along, the labels that are on the glass will be vacuumed off the glass as it moves along the process. And then your organic material on there, the peanut butter and jelly, that will also melt off and be vacuumed. So we don't use any water. We don't give off any emission.
Any other questions? Very good presentation,
Thank you.
so thank you very much.
Like, can I mention
So how
one more
many,
thing?
so how many do you have to have to start?
Ideally, we would like to have about 75 to 100 to start a route. We're hoping though that we'll get by with just 40 to 50 to start, given that we're going to be servicing the neighboring municipalities here.
So will it be rolled out, introduced, and then say, sign up, and then we'll let you know when we are going to start, because you'll wait to hit that threshold?
We've done that before in the past. We did that with Taylorsville. And the one thing that we learned was that it's hard to start then stop. And so we're planning to have to really go out there and get the word out and connect with residents. So as soon as we say, you know, if we complete the agreement together and we're approved to provide the service, we'll start the very next month. And it'll be up to us to try to place bins out there and hopefully get the word out.
So you will be coming out even if there's just 5, 10 signups at first?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that many people ask me about glass recycling, so, you know, I do think
Yeah.
that you'll get the numbers that you.
There is kind of, so we have a sense that when we place a bin on a street, people will see it when they're walking their dog and then they'll learn about it. And so it is that's kind of the idea. But it is a bit nerve-wracking to start off with maybe only 20 customers and then hope to get up to 100 pretty quickly. But I think we hope that that'll happen.
Have you considered any bulk locations where you could, like a school parking lot or that sort of situation where somebody may want to participate, but they're not quite ready to sign up for the program on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, in the lower left here is a picture of what we call a glass pod. We have about a dozen of these around the valley. It is usually hosted at a municipal property, so a park, a fire station, city hall, and then there's usually a service fee associated with that. We are looking at that. Well, usually it either entails the city allocating budget for that or having a private partner want to host that on their property. So we would like to see that because it is kind of, I compare it to a gym membership. Some people like to go to the gym, some people like to have a home gym, and it's the same thing with the glass recycling. We have people that sign up right across the street from a glass recycling drop-off location. They'd rather have a bin right on their driveway and vice versa. And also folks that, you know, their dwelling is an apartment or a triplex that we can't service.
What are the anticipated costs on something like that?
The actual unit itself is $700. To service it is $40 per pickup. And then there's each additional cart, so if you want to expand the volume, is $7.50 per pickup.
And then if you reach some sort of bulk level, like it gets really popular, does that price ever come down for the city if we participated in a bulk pickup like that?
I wish we could, because my blunt answer would be because our labor costs don't go down, our insurance costs
Sure.
don't go down. So if anything else went down, we could. But we would entertain the idea of having a rebate per ton. Sometimes we've done that where, say, $5 per ton is put into what's known as an education fund. And then as that builds up over time, the city can decide, well, we're going to put that into educating the public about recycling and sustainability or whatever it might be.
is I could very easily see with a high level of community participation, you could have a glass drive that would overwhelm a pod pretty quickly at a school or something like that. And if we're providing you extra product, there are two things, is I'd want it to go away, not pile up outside the location, and then not be particularly costly for the city if it's, rather than driving the whole route, you're getting everything in one drop, so.
Yeah, which is actually why we design these. Usually it's a roll-off dumpster, which requires a different vehicle. This way we're in the neighborhood and we can swing by and service it whenever you need.
I don't know if I'm the only one thinking that way, but as far as
So
I
I
can
can see
hold.
the benefit.
I can see the benefit.
We've actually had discussions and talked about it in the past.
Well, I would actually entertain both. I would like to see a community pickup location and individual routes. I think there's merit in both of them, and I think they would get used.
I would think if it doesn't cost us anything, we could definitely start with home and see how much interest we have in it before we put in the set. I don't want to tie it $700, but, it doesn't look to me like there's any chance of losing anything the other way. See if we've got many takers.
Lisa, question for you, based on what's been presented and what you've already seen on this, how long would it take to get everything in place to make this work?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see what the council does, and we'll start working on the ordinance amendments and the contract.
We have an agreement here right now, Lisa. You're looking to see, to get approval on this agreement?
No.
Okay. It's a
Getting to
draft,
go
it
ahead.
says.
Well,
If you look at the recommendation, it's to direct staff to move forward with this project.
I would motion that we direct staff to move forward in the drafting of appropriate ordinance changes to be presented to the council during the month of June.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We have further discussion, or will you just do the motion, Councilman?
I'll
Okay.
look forward to a tour.
Look forward to a tour. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, still staff's moving ahead on it. And Jason, take.
Oh, I did have one other question.
Yeah.
Do you attempt not to duplicate local garbage days, or do you attempt to duplicate local garbage days?
That's a great question. We usually try not to be there on the same day as the local garbage day. The feedback that we've heard is there's too many carts on the curb and there's too many trucks in the neighborhood. But if the city would like to choose the day of the month.
I just was
Yeah.
curious.
So does the same family own it that started it?
Correct, yep.
Could you give their last name?
John Lair, and it's Jeff and Kate Whitbeck.
I presume, although you would like to have everybody do it, I presume there would be no issue if my neighbor and I wanted to share it.
None at all. That's very popular in cul-de-sacs. We see that all the time. We're actually working on making a sign that residents can put on their bin because we have so many people that share it with their neighbors that they put it out a day early or something, or they'll put it next to their fence and say, please feel free to put your glass in here. So, yeah.
That's where my brain was going to. I don't have that much glass, but I do want to be able to recycle.
That's why I was asking about the bulk. There's we maybe have a jar or two a month, but if there were a place for me to take it, I probably would.
Could I show you one more thing related to the drop-off locations that you mentioned? If the glass pod is successful, which we've seen, the volume goes up. We did just recently do these dumpster murals. I don't know if you saw those in the news, but this is the one that's at Liberty Park. We worked with a local artist to actually turn an otherwise unassuming blue dumpster into an awesome mural. And so it's meant to basically connect how recycling helps preserve the beauty of Centerville and greater Utah. And so there's also this one at Sugar House Park. This is the second one that we did. It kind of has more like an outdoor ski theme. And so we're going to be doing 2 more of these in Salt Lake City in the coming months, and then we're looking to expand those as well. It's really helped kind of give some character to the whole program.
Well, now I wouldn't expect anything less. If you just showed up with a brown one, I'd say take it away.
And is this a $700? I mean, the first one you showed had 2 entrance ports. This one's a 3.
Yep.
7. Are they all 700, or just the bigger they are, the more they are?
To do a dumpster mural, we've actually been looking at a private sponsorship for those. They cost about $1,800 to sandblast this and paint it and get it all fixed up looking like this. And then we provide the dumpster and then perform the service. The service is probably closer to $100 per pickup for a dumpster like this versus a glass pod. But the glass pod offers the flexibility, and a dumpster you have to have 2 parking spaces and a larger parking lot. So the glass pod is the entry-level option, if you will, and this is when you're getting serious about glass recycling.
George, I don't recall if your motion included this, but I would want to direct staff to, when they bring the agreement back, to also bring back the information that we've heard tonight about the possibilities for the community collection sites so that we can talk about that further.
I was ambiguous enough that, yeah, I don't think that'd be a problem. For me, because it's the stats collection thing, if we did spend public funds on this, then I would want to publish that as here's the stats on how much glass has come out of the community from the 2 sources and keep the reporting on that independent, which I'm sure you already do, or that's probably not the first time you've heard that request. Because if we're spending, we'll pick the number 700 plus 200 a pickup, and we're talking multiple tons of glass. It's actually a really good story. That's a good use of public funds, in my opinion.
I agree that we ought to. In fact, I'm not sure that I don't think we shouldn't expand to encourage any pending multifamily areas
To have glass recycling.
that they have it.
That's a really good
That's-
idea.
that's a really
Pod
good point.
pickup in the- Yeah.
Because I was thinking with the schools, if you ever wanted to pump up a glass recycling day, you just do a history lesson on World War II collections and tell the kids, bring a glass jar, chuck it in there, and you'll fill it up in seconds, especially in our community. So I love the idea of making it part of multifamily situations, that's part of the standard package. So that sounds like a new motion for staff, to look at amending the ordinances to require that.
And
I think that's a really good idea.
as part of the program, we offer the city access to our exact same internal control center is what we refer to it as. So you can log in at any time and see which residents are subscribed to the service, how much has been diverted. If we add in drop-off locations, you can see how much volume has been diverted from that. You can run all types of reporting that you want to.
I would make a motion that we instruct Corey and Lisa to look at it as putting it into the regulations, that wherever possible, we get a glass recycling pod at every multifamily development that we have. So if somebody comes to us for a change, the cost is, okay, but you need to consider this.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion on that motion? Okay, let's, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You got a 3-for-1 out of one deal.
Wow.
Thank you.
So out of curiosity, do you find that your collections are higher after like the Super Bowl and July 4th and
New
times like
Year's.
this?
Yep, yeah, we do. We usually do, we try to do like a news segment, right before New Year's, saying, make sure you recycle your champagne bottles or whatever, and that type of thing. But for the most part, it's not really seasonal in nature. It's a pretty steady influx of glass coming in. We still, to this day, are only operating at about half of our capacity. So we could still double our capacity and still be fine.
I think it's great that you've made it as low bar as possible. I lived in foreign countries where it was sorted, cleaned it, only certain colors.
Yeah.
You had to know what the glass was, and they only took certain types of glass. So I appreciate the fact that you've made it, America-proof. Just chuck it in the bin.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
You got more than you bargained for, didn't you? Yeah. All right, let's go to item number 5. This is a UDOT federal aid agreement on Parish Lane intersection at 400 West and Marketplace. This one kind of is exciting to me because this is something we talk about an awful lot. But Kevin, are you coming up? Want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so basically, the federal aid agreement is, well, let me give maybe a little bit of background. The city is on the hook typically for the environmental portion of the project. The environmental portion was completed under what's called a categorical exclusion. So we have to develop about 30% concept drawings, and then there's some letters, some historical and other letters that have to be written. So the CADX is being processed through the state. It should be cleared here in the next few weeks, possibly. So in the meantime, the UDOT project manager, his name is Dave Adamson, he wanted to get the federal aid agreement going so that once the environmental is cleared, we can start to use the federal funds for design. So once the design is prepared, we can bring that to you folks and to the council. We can have an open house for the public, maybe this fall. And so we want to start using the federal funds that were granted to the city so we can not use additional city funds. The grant amount is it 3.16? 3.66, okay, 3.66 million. The city has a match of 7%, and so the match will go towards the design as well. But in short, we want to enter into this federal aid agreement so we can begin to use the federal funds for design, public involvement, open houses, and that, in short, that's what this is.
Clarify, Kevin, it's 3.667 total project.
That's the total project cost, yes.
3.18.
So what's our city portion?
487,
500,000.
is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
47,000.
This seems pretty straightforward, but if we participate with this and we get the federal aid, do we have any control over the build schedule? I know we've talked about this before, about which intersection goes first.
Yeah, that's a good question. So WFRC, they agreed to bump up the later projects so that we could build both projects together. The UDOT project manager was very much in favor of that. He would like to see the city only impacted over 6 months or 9 months instead of 2 years. So that was a big win for the city in getting those other funds bumped up and combined so that we can complete the Fourth West and the Marketplace intersections at the same time. There will be a cost savings just due to the fact that one contractor will have to mobilize. So that was a big win for the city to be able to get both of those projects combined.
So I won't be able to head north other than Main Street for 6 months? I'm just focusing on what you said. You're like, uh-oh, that's a bit of a problem.
A lot of the work on these signals and widening is on the corners. So there's a lot of ped ramp work. There's a lot of curb and gutter, sidewalk, shoulder widening. And then they try to get the new pole in place while the traffic signal is still working so that there's a changeover of only maybe a couple of days. So that's not to say there won't be some obvious interference, but a lot of the work is on the shoulders, and so that they're able to keep the traffic lanes open and keep people moving through.
And with the approval, what's the anticipated start date?
We're hoping that we can advertise possibly this winter or spring. We're pushing to hopefully build in 2022. That's what we would like to see happen. The main wild card is acquiring of the right-of-way. So that's where projects can get caught up a little bit. So we're hoping that we can push the right-of-way through. That's the first timeline that we need to get done is get the right-of-way documents to the UDOT complex so that their folks can start to work with the different property owners. That can sometimes take 6 months plus. So that's the critical time path item.
How much right-of-way needs to be acquired?
There's probably 8 parcels that would be, one on each corner of both intersections. So my guess right now would be about 8 or 9 parcels would be impacted. We have tried to shift as far as we possibly can to the west on the 400 West intersection so that we're not impacting the Dairy Queen drive-through at all. There will still be a take along the Dairy Queen corner, but we've shifted to the west towards Zions Bank and America First Bank. So there's some fairly significant takes along some of those corners. There's some takes on the Bank of America site, and then the MTC corner. You might be a dozen parcels. I would say 8 to 12 parcels that'll be impacted.
How many feet? Can you just go that far? Are we talking
I probably better
3 feet,
not
5 feet, 10 feet?
guess. You're going to be, if I had to throw out a number, plus or minus 10 feet on some of these corners.
But how minimal is the Dairy Queen?
The way that we've designed the Dairy Queen is we've got the sidewalk butted up right against their curbing, so we're not going into their asphalt drive-through at all. So it takes out the park strip, and you'll have a sidewalk right up against the back of curb and gutter. But that's the kind of the best we could do to save the drive-through, not impact their asphalt.
That, at least to me, sounds great, so.
It's,
We were very careful about that.
I know,
I think you've got
we
a bigger.
wanted them to be, but I'm glad that we're getting the result we want.
Yeah, I think there's a bigger problem with traffic in and out, backing out onto the road. When we have a dual left through there, it's going to be a nightmare in that area. So I think the Dairy Queen is not going to be a problem. I'm more worried about the in and out traffic.
Yeah, in and out, the Chick-fil-A, one thing that we've implemented into the design is the dual extends all the way to Chick-fil-A. And then you'll have a drop lane that'll drop into Chick-fil-A or into the new Hive development. So we're trying to extend those dual lanes. That doesn't help for the in and out.
No, because people are going to duck, because they do it now, you've seen it, they duck around the traffic to try and get to the 7-Eleven or get to the street there, so depending on the alignment, there's going to be some interesting jogging of cars where people are trying to get around that traffic. Really, the answer for that one is not the city, it's in and out needs to fix their traffic pattern inside their location, because it's.
They need to have a meeting with Chick-fil-A and figured it out.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A figured it out, and they've got it down to just
Only
a
took
bulletproof
5
system,
years.
but the in and out is, I see that that's going to be an area of contention when that double left is in there. Not a problem for us to solve tonight, I'm just making note, so Brant, when we get closer, we're going to have to talk to them about their traffic patterns and more enforcement.
Definitely.
I duck cars coming out of there all the time as it is now, and we don't have 2 lanes of traffic coming in there, so.
Okay,
So we're looking for, approve the UDOT federal aid agreement?
yeah, I would move that we approve the UDOT federal aid agreement as listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion is second, roll call vote. Councilman Yance.
Aye.
Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman McEwen.
Aye.
Councilman Ivy.
I don't love the finished product, but in
And
fact, I really dislike it.
Well, and we're at 30% concept design, so we need to, when we get to, 50, 60%, we need to bring it to you folks so that we can take a look at it, see if there's other tweaks. From the work sessions that we've had, there have been tweaks that have been implemented. So we're not saying that we have 100% design. We're at 30% design. We're looking for additional ideas, before we get to that 60% or 90% design, so.
Councilwoman Fillmore.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry.
And to the design point, I mean, I felt really good about that last work session that we had and getting multiple eyes on it and viewpoints, and I think there were some improvements made there, so.
Yeah, we came a long way from the original to where we are, so I'm looking forward to the next design session.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's go to item number 6. This is a bid award, street rebuild project, 400 East Chase Lane to Parish Lane. You're up there standing, Kevin. You want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, so basically this is 400 East, where we're completing the utility projects. The irrigation project has been completed. The culinary water starts this week. Storm drain goes along with that. This contract is for the street reconstruction. It's basically a 12-inch street rebuild, 8 inches of road base and 4 inches of asphalt with a lot of ped ramp and concrete work. This is the same contractor that was awarded our Chase Lane overlay post-asphalt out of Ogden. Reputable contractor that we've worked with in the past. And so we're glad that we got such a good bid and very competitive and within our budget. So.
It is impressively competitive. So I would make a motion that we accept the bid number of 573,847.50 post asphalt.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Meekum?
Aye.
Councilwoman McEwen?
Aye.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Aye.
Councilwoman Fillmore?
Aye.
And Councilman Ince.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0.
Kevin, please pass on to our Public Works. They've been a great job up there on controlling it and helping with the neighbors. And I'm so impressed, and I'm not getting a ton of phone calls this year like I did last, Joe.
Yeah, one thing that's really helped a lot is they've put down a temporary patch. And
Yeah.
so that's really kept the dust down. And we've been meeting weekly with the contractor. So
Just pass it
those
along. We're very
concerns have
happy.
been, we've been trying to listen and try to keep the public a little bit happier.
Yeah,
So
it's been amazing, the difference between last year and this year.
Same contractor, right?
I don't know if
the
it's the
same
same.
utility contractor, the street contractor will be different, but the same utility contractor, yeah.
To note.
So it was our Public Works that came along and pushed this, make it and put an overlay down. I mean, last year it was just atrocious.
Yeah.
I mean, I was getting dust from Northeast.
Well, it sounds like it was a combination of Public Works efforts and a different contractor possibly.
The stretch is a little bit different, so we're able to shut down Parish Lane to Chase Lane a lot
So less driving too?
more easily than we were able to shut down
Okay.
Center Street to Parish.
Yeah,
So that makes a big difference, keeping the traffic off of it.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, let's go to item number 7. This is to discuss the master plan for William R. Smith Park and City Hall. For those of us that drove, those of us that rode our bikes, those of us that walked here today, we probably saw that there's been some changes in between here and Smith Park. There was some, the house went down and there was some scraping of dirt. And Bruce, are you going to explain to us what that dirt field's going to be? Is it going to be a dirt bike track, or is it going to be something else?
Well, that's what we're here to talk to the council about. We have a master plan that was made quite a few years ago, before any of this council were on the council, and before we move forward with any, there hasn't been any opportunities for moving forward with our master plan, and now we have an opportunity. So we just kind of wanted to, Lisa thought it'd be a good idea, and I agree that we should bring it to the council. That, there's been a lot of changes in Centerville over the last, since this master plan was drawn up, and I know there's some desire of a public safety building, and also I know the museum has ideas of things they'd like to do, and so we just thought we'd bring this master plan back to the council to look at and discuss. And then, yeah, the way it is now, the master plan shows that the newly acquired property would just become more open park space with grass and trees, and then ideally in the future, if we're able to acquire the west part of that property to align the driveways of the post office and city hall together, and also create more open space and green space to make a very nice, open, big city council campus or not city council, city hall campus that would be our museum, our city hall, our park, and would allow for larger groups to be able to gather for pumpkin walks and Easter egg hunts and different, all the different things we do at the park now, and the pavilion that was built when we remodeled that park was built with this master plan in mind. So looking at now, the pavilion is more in the center of the property, whereas it's looked like it's been up over on the side of the property for a long time. But now if you add on the space between City Hall and the park, it now is more central located in the park. So anyway, that I leave it to the council to look at and make your comments and discuss and give direction on what you would like.
So Bruce, you pointed out that it was a long time ago that this was drafted. Since it's been drafted, the Randall gas station is now on the National Historic Registry, right? It was submitted for that.
It is,
Did it get approved?
yes.
So I guess I'm having a hard time picturing a driveway where a registered historic building is. What are your thoughts on that?
You can still do the driveway. Being on the registry does not make it so we can't tear the building down and put a nice memorial marker in its place. It just is on the registry. It doesn't impede us from being able to go ahead with our plans.
That was a fast answer, so it sounds like you want that building to come down. You didn't even try defending it. How do you really feel about it, Bruce? I mean, granted, it's not a well-maintained building, but the uniqueness and the character that was explained to us years ago of it being a prototype building for that type of gas station, you don't see there's any desire or to attempt to preserve it or to refurb it if it could be acquired by the city?
I think the city would greatly benefit from having more open space and park space than they would ever from a restored, cool gas station.
Fair enough. I kind of disagree with you, though, because I think it would be really nice to have a place where a couple classic cars could be under glass and people could come and walk and see something that's historical. I mean, for me, sure, you could knock it down, and I'm going to use the P word. You could put a pickleball court there, but I think that you'd lose something from the character of the area. So I'm actually apt to want to adjust that plan and leave it in place.
I'm actually sympathetic with George's thought.
I am too.
It'd be cool as a 50s diner, if anybody would want to do it.
I would love to have a soda station in there and have that revamped. Now, granted, it's got to come back to its glory days and its current state of affairs. I can see why a realigned driveway makes sense, but
But no, not a realigned driveway. I think that's about the worst thing we could do there. Because really, what are you trying to do? Have people cross all the way across Main Street to go from City Hall to the post office? We're just asking for problems.
So I stood up we've discussed this internally as staff, and this is the plan, but the plans can shift. And I think at this point, we just look at the Pork Randall property. The Ron Randall property, this is fluid, and I don't think we make a decision on what that might be today and have another plan developed.
Not guaranteed we will.
Exactly. And if we want to keep it historical, then maybe the city doesn't acquire it. But there's a private party that wants to acquire it, and fix it up. I'm just saying, there's so many options out there. So Bruce was absolutely giving you the straightforward, but that's not necessarily representative that we are being mindful. Bruce was just answering the question, which I agree with. He answered the question saying you can, just because it's on the National Historic
But
Registry.
you're bringing to us right now, the
Right.
Pork Randall property we've acquired, the building's been torn down.
Right.
That's what you're bringing to us for, as
Right.
courtesy in our consideration.
Absolutely, and just the realignment of the drive, Councilmember Ivy, the argument there is trying to turn left into City Hall, those trying to turn left in the post office. It has, even for myself, created 3 close calls in accidents. And so that's the issue with the realignment of the drive, is just trying to turn into City Hall and trying to line up the post office so you're both turning and not creating that potential. The other issue is you push that realignment further to the north, which then starts getting closer to the Parish Lane left turn lanes, which could create its own problems. So again, there's no perfect scenario there, but I think that's a separate conversation for another day, and I'm not even in a position where I think the city should acquire the property. And in all honesty, that's a different conversation for another day. But I do understand respecting the
I
historical.
agree where you say it's a different conversation, but I don't want to put my stamp of approval on a map that shows a road going through a historic property. And because to me, that signals that this council is in agreement with that particular component, and I'm not in agreement with that component. I would rather say, dotted line to be acquired or determined versus saying there's a driveway, that is the plan. Because as we've all been well-schooled in how plans work over time, we sometimes are constrained or feel constrained by plans that have been made in the past. And I don't want to bring it forward saying I don't care about the historical preservation of that property.
Well, I will say that, and I appreciate that. I agree. So administratively, we have a plan. And administratively, the option is to proceed in putting in grass and sprinklers and few trees and delaying this discussion. But something needs to happen soon on that property with the demolition complete. And really that's the direction, at a minimum, just throwing down grass and sprinklers, which we have no problem with. But Bruce, again, just wanted to bring this forward. And I think this is a great discussion that needs to be had in much more detail for the entire site.
And soon.
I really like the idea of us exploring, maybe sooner rather than later, this behind the museum plaza area. And if that is explored, then we need to move and replace the community gardens. I also don't know how much demand there is for the community gardens.
It's full.
More than we can provide for, is that correct? Do we turn
Actually,
people away,
Lisa
or?
Summers told me earlier this year that we've been having problems with gardeners not cleaning up their lots and leaving their weed fabric down, which has caused problems with our equipment. And I said, hey, Lisa, we can't allow gardeners to put down weed fabric. And she said if we didn't allow them to put down weed fabric, then no one would sign up to have a garden, which I kind of think that maybe that's a little exaggerated, but I'm thinking, boy, if it's that big a deal that they can't use weed fabric, then, and they have other options, maybe the gardens aren't that popular. She said no one would sign up. So I'm like,
Well, my point is that we do have a plan that I think we would want to pursue of creating kind of a plaza, beautified public space area behind
Brant, I think it's your
the
mic.
museum. And so if, rather than spending money and water on lawn, that maybe we would look at tearing back up again later, maybe we prepare this to be community garden space. And if it doesn't all get used, that's pretty easy to care for.
I would just, Bruce, I think I'd push back a little bit in terms of what's the future of the 4th of July celebration, right? I mean, community garden space, are we trying to add more park space there? This is a huge conversation that has a lot of consequences to the decision. So it's really inexpensive. Bruce might disagree, but just putting in grass and sprinklers, it's easier to tear that up versus putting in community gardens for, Bruce, go ahead.
The Randall property is far less desirable garden space than the existing garden space. We had to dig in a couple places. It's it's straight boulders, it's straight rock. We're going to try to build up the soil level because of the, it has about 13 feet of straight boulders and rocks. So I don't know how pork was able to grow anything on that little bit of dirt that's on top of all those rocks, but it is one rocky lot.
That's what I told him today in the meeting we were in, is that's where the flood came down. Somebody said, oh, it was the mayor that said all that good topsoil, and I said, there isn't any good topsoil
There's
over at
no
Porks.
topsoil. There's no
Because
topsoil.
that's where the flood came down.
Landslide.
In the 20s.
Oh.
And it came down, it took Centerville Elementary, went down through the park. And so my yard has gorgeous topsoil, but 2 houses over has boulders the size of cars in it.
Yes.
I mean, it's huge. I've got actually pictures of the flood and the huge rocks that were in Smith Park and Pork's property, that I don't think that would be anywhere that you could probably put a garden. I have had some people approach me wanting pickleball courts there too. I think that's all okay, but I think you're right. I think we need to put some grass, some sprinklers, and get it okay, and then we can work on it later.
Yeah, we could develop another plan today that, 20 years from now, another council decides, hey, no, we want to do this.
Right.
But I think at a minimum, just to put in some grass, really weed maintenance, right, Bruce? I mean, we don't want to have weeds in there, put in some grass. We can potentially tap into our existing infrastructure irrigation, or do we need to use the home's irrigation line, Bruce?
We will use the point of connection from, and we will also connect it with our park irrigation too. Both will probably loop it.
Right, Bruce, I think I saw that the vinyl fence separating was taken down as well too, right?
So in the windstorm, a large pine tree fell through that fence, and from the point of where the fence was damaged up to the street, we took it down, and the part from that was still intact along the pavilion, we left. So there's half of the fence is gone and half is there.
I guess what I'm asking is, will our residents, if we go the grass route, will our residents be able to see that, hey, this is an extension of the park, and they can go over there and throw the frisbee and the football or whatever?
Yes, already it really lends itself to looking, wow, look how open this area can be, and could really be I think a beautiful campus for City Hall, to just have beautiful grounds and trees and grass all around. We can design continue the sidewalk. The sidewalk has ended at the City Hall property and did not continue across Porks, but then starts again at the park. We can make a continuous sidewalk now all along the street, and I think it can really be a beautiful continuation of City Hall grounds and the park altogether.
Well, and the reminder of the extra room for bringing the 4th of July celebration back over here. That's important.
So with Councilor McEwen's point, you're not
Which one I was
stamping
throwing out tons.
you're not stamping the realignment, so to say. Really, we're kind of asking for permission. Can we just proceed with the plan as currently is, just for this property?
Portion.
Yeah.
Not asking, somebody else has already stamped it, so you can blame that council.
Well, no,
for that.
I am totally behind capping it with some grass, getting some water on there, and creating some usable space while future debates or funds are found for other purposes. It seems only appropriate to do that. However, I want to revisit this plan really soon to make sure that alignment issue is resolved, and that if the council feels that, I heard a bunch of comments, oh, it'd be good for a soda place or whatever. If that is a preservation effort that the Landmarks Commission and others want to take up and talk to that property owner, I think as a city, I would love to see where there is a current owner who has been there forever, if they understood what the legacy of that property was, versus a statement that says, there's a driveway after you pass on.
Right.
I think it would be a much better statement that we make as a city.
I will share from my administrative perspective, I like the gas station. That's my historical side of me, but I do want the back half of the property, right, for the open space. But
Right.
I think there is an opportunity to put maybe the mayor and council offices in that building, and we call it good.
That's fine. I
Can I
totally.
just say, the need to look at this is urgent, because on this, there is not even a representation of the summer kitchen. that the museum is actively restoring right now, nor is there consideration of the fact that the museum is spending their 2021-22 budget planning the area around the summer kitchen. So,
And the pole barn.
yeah, and the pole barn, yeah.
Well, that's why Bruce wanted to bring it up. The pole barn discussion that we had a month ago is saying, look, and potentially the public safety building that we've also had a conversation about internally, there is a lot of ideas and interests in some of this property that we do need to visit this. And that's why I appreciate Bruce bringing this up. This is the first meeting of many that we need to have to plan out this area.
But soon, because if the museum spends all that money and effort.
Well, keep
and
in
then
mind,
it's-
correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but this really is more of a concept. This is not like, this is how, and you have to do these things. This is
Right.
more,
Right, I will.
this is just an idea.
But
Right.
I'll push strongly, though, that we shouldn't be building new buildings and putting things down that are not part of something already planned for what we really want to see as the whole final product. I feel very strongly about that. So I don't.
But the
your
summer
point-
kitchen is an existing building that's being restored right now.
Right, but you also
So-
want to do the pole barn, right? So I'm
Yes,
just
but
agreeing.
that's not something the museum has had money to invest
Sure.
in. So they're doing their money investment on designing just a little piece around the, kind of between the museum and where the PD parks.
And I'm in agreement with Tammy that if you're going to go and spend the time and effort, your plan should be at least somewhat reflective of what you're trying to do. Granted, it doesn't have to be 100%, but it should look close.
Well, new buildings and things like that, different. Renovating or changing, I'm not overly concerned with, but I do get the point that we should have a better idea. And Lisa popped on the screen, so we're all in trouble.
And I
so.
think I just want to say too, if we hire a creative designer, we can have a couple of different options for different future possibilities.
And there's been talk, the museum was not included in this, no museum people that I know were included in this run-through. And so the discussions that have been had between the museum and staff about connecting the parking lots or other things like that are not represented in this design either. So it would be good to get it all. So if the council wants to spend money and design it, the museum would be happy to go together and pool their funds as well, probably go more together or contribute in some way.
Bruce, do you know what the date is of this document?
Lisa, you know, was it
2003?
2000?
Really long time ago.
Yeah, I thought this might be a nice time to explain that if you want to make any changes to this plan, it will actually require a general plan amendment. And there is some, well, not confusion. The general plan, as Corey pointed out to us, provides for this area that the Founders Park, so the name needs to be changed, but the Founders Park City Hall area has been master planned, and it says that it should follow the James Glasscock version of the master plan, which was prepared in 2001. We can't find that plan, and it's not pictured in the general plan. So that's why you have in your staff report the Curtis Tanner version, which is a much more recent version. It's kind of a nice version. I remember the James Glasscock. Some of us that have been here for a while, Steve used to have it in that conference room, and it was on a big whiteboard, and it was, hand drawn. Anyway, we didn't ever get it in our master plan. We just refer to it. So my preference is that, yes, you spend some time and energy to master plan the area, bringing in all the different parties and amending your master plan to reflect that new plan. I think Bruce brought up a great idea, though, in saying, hey, we're going to start putting lawn and sprinklers. Let's just bring this before the council, make sure they understand the general guidelines. And I think that that's a reasonable direction for tonight. Let's just go with that. And if you'd like to schedule for future work sessions to completely reevaluate this master plan area, let's do that and budget some money for it.
That sounds great.
I love that idea.
We like plans in administration, just so
I like plans too, but one of the things that with this one is it's in sore need of an update. And I also don't want to say, we agree to do this and then we don't touch it for another year. I'd like to bring this into this calendar year. I don't know.
Yeah, and
how
I just
everyone
want to
else feels
make
about it.
clear to the council that I'm not sure that a city council is actually approved officially this Curtis Tanner version. I don't recall the history of this one, and it actually doesn't have a date on it, but it's certainly later than the hand-drawn James Glasscock version of 2000. So let's say, somewhere between 2001 and 2010, but so, yeah, I think.
You're just adding to the alacrity of wanting to replace it with what we actually have and make it all legal.
Yes.
So it sounds like I'm being prompted for sooner than later from Lisa.
No, I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying, put it on the list, budget some money for it.
Well, we've got money for general plan update anyway in the budget. And there's going to be some effort on that coming up, so this needs to be part of it.
This will be in addition to, definitely will cost added money to that. I can't even give an estimate at this point, Bruce. I don't know if you have an estimate, but off the top of my head, 15 to 20,000.
So let me take a stab at motion and see if this works for everybody. So I'd motion that we direct staff to proceed with putting in sprinkling systems and grass for the affected area, pending future plans, and to further direct staff to prepare a budget for master plan amendment or a master park plan amendment and the ordinance for the general plan, and bring that to us as a work session item. I'm going to say after budget. I see what you're saying, but we really need to get it in for budget. So
no, I'm just saying, I don't know if anybody can repeat that motion.
that is the beauty of online. It can be done. Would you like me to repeat it? They're seconding it already, so
Jennifer, do you have a...
So should I restate it one more time?
If you can remember it.
Yes.
You didn't have to say it over.
Oh, I could do it.
There, we got it. We got a motion and a second.
But I needed to add a time frame on it, and that's the question, and I'm just looking to the council. If this is something that we need to budget, and budget is coming up for final approval, we would need to have that number in there prior to final budget approval. So is that June that we'd want to see this number? We'd have to.
Yes, we'd have to.
Okay. So
You saying a budget amendment to the budget, that number that you're
the
looking for?
amendment to the budget for the parks planning, you just threw out 15 to 20,000.
Well, I'm going to throw, Nate, let's put $30,000 in that potentially, increase that line item for general plan amendment. 30,000, I just want to things are expensive.
Okay.
So.
Then I would say that we would want to review the materials, the cost, in a work session for the final meeting of June.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Motion second, to further discussion of that amendment, or that motion?
I don't know, that one didn't go off as well, so I don't know if everyone likes that one.
No, that was fine.
I like it.
All right,
General enough, I'm good with it.
all in favor, aye?
But, so there's some discussion.
Wait, there's discussion. Pull back that vote.
I am hugely in
How will it be
favor
funded?
of, I'm hugely in favor of the sentiment. The only concern that I have is it's been a really long time since we've met with the Planning Commission and done a goals evaluation. And there have been a lot of other master planning kinds of priorities where a, significant consulting fee would be involved, similar to this $15,000 to $30,000 that we're talking about, that I heard a lot of resistance from the council about. So as much in favor as I am on this, I'm a little bit confused, and I want to make sure that we're not throwing something in there where we've neglected some other things that have been waiting for a few years now. So that is my concern.
But we did program for the general plan review in budget. So I think this would just be an addition too, right? So we're not, I'm just trying to remember which one we're
I'll
neglecting.
tell you specifically what I'm thinking, that this is a large portion of our Main Street. And you all know that I've been working for many years and would be very interested in having a plan for that entire section of our Main Street to be beautified and have a theme and something cohesive. And so this council withdrew that plan, but hasn't yet replaced it. And so I would like, this portion of Main Street that's significant to be a part of even that bigger plan, which has been on the table for many, many, many years.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So, yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I see what you're saying. 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 I see what I don't wholly disagree. I'm just concerned about the size of and the scope of what we'd be trying to do. I think we'd have a better chance of coming up with a cohesive park plan and being able to say, okay, we want this here, we want to preserve this, versus because we talked about this last time, the community involvement necessary to look at what a full main streetscape looks like would be a much more significant effort requiring a lot more stakeholders.
Yes, but to your point of not letting things just go for a long time, I think that that's my point, is that it really just takes commitment from the council. It takes political will to say, let's keep this a priority and get it done. So I'm thrilled to sit here and see everyone so excited to add $30,000 to the budget to create a plan for this area. And what I'd like to see is that same sort of commitment to beautifying, that entire stretch, tied possibly with work from the Landmarks Commission, right? We've got these historic buildings, we've got signage ideas. Let's pull it all together, is my point. Because this Main Street is the frontage of this whole area, which really is a gem of our city. And I think we should start treating it as such.
So the way you feel that this is in 92 the latest, greatest flavor of ice cream, and it's fresh on our minds, and so we're all excited about it, and not neglect, and we're not thinking about something that we maybe have been putting off for a while.
That this is a big part of, and could speak to what happens for the rest of Main Street. That's the leaning I've always had, is we have a council that is highly supportive of the historic nature of this area of our city. So why not have that speak to this section and give it that flavor and increase its quality?
I think we're actually in agreement on this in terms of, for me, if we start with the park and we develop the scope and the design of what the park looks like as we'll just call it crown jewel type, or the anchor location of the government complex area that we have here, and then that helps us set the standard for the rest of the area. And I think that those standards could bleed over very easily if they're successful standards and the community accepts them and all of that. And so to me, I'd say plow ahead forward with the park, develop the standard, and then roll that into the rest of the community along that corridor with the stakeholder involvement from those who would be impacted by it. And it's, as you know, it's much easier to show than tell, right? If we have a successful implementation of the park, it's much easier for us to push that standard forward. So I hear you. I'm in agreement on that.
Then I would ask for the council to be committed as part of this to consider the streetscape portion, particularly on Main Street, and have that be in mind as far as possibly being something that can get pulled through.
I'm willing to consider it, but not inside the context of this motion, though.
No, not inside of, just part of the discussion.
Yeah, fair enough.
Keep it in mind. Thank you.
To clarify, Councilor McKeon, the motion is for us to have a work session last meeting in June for a scoping and a cost? Is that?
Well,
I mean, if we're putting it in the budget for next year, I'd say this is a project for next year.
no, I don't want it to be for next year.
Well, next
because-
fiscal year. I mean,
Yeah, next fiscal year, yes, but
that's what I'm saying, next fiscal year.
Yeah.
He's saying we need to have the money in the budget for next fiscal.
And we're saying let's budget a certain amount in terms of
Right.
going out for RFP and all those items, that takes
Right.
time,
Right.
and that's a quick turnaround. Say, we could start the project now, that's not a problem.
But there's a little bit of project planning and project kickoff that we can do even prior to a budget, because it's our time, right? So if we're doing the work session and you've got a, plotted out version of this plan and everyone gets their marker and says, do this, you've at least got the scope of what we're trying to, I don't want to engage a consultant to do that effort. I think there's plenty of ways for this group to collect the scope of the basics of design before we talk to anyone. And at least have, when we go out for RFP, that we're saying, this is what we're attempting to do. These are the items we've discussed, so that we're tight in scope. The worst thing and I hate this because I have to deal with it all the time, is sitting in rooms with consultants, watching the meter tick over as the consultant walks me through the process of how to ask me what I really want. And I think there's enough talent inside the council, planning and background, that we can say, this is ultimately what we think we want, and then get the feedback from staff about some of the practicalities from your professional experience, and then engage a firm to actually take that concept and turn it into a functional design. I think that's the process I'd like to see happening in that work session, is get that going so that we are basically in agreement what we're trying to get out of a consulting group. I just don't want to engage them and then try and figure that out.
So are you saying that you want the museum to stop what they're already doing?
No,
Because they're already planning a little section. They're trying to excavate around the, all the vinca and stuff that's growing over all of the artifacts that are in the yard there.
Yeah, what I would actually say for that one is we get a large plot and put it up on the wall and you draw right on it. This is the area that's already under development, because what the plan that exists, we all agree, is not representative of A, what's there, or what has transpired over time. So you're at least starting with the basics of your plan before we bring that to somebody to try and fix. I'm just trying to shorten that process of scope discovery and what people want. Because it usually takes some time.
So could we include the person who's doing the planning of that section?
I think that's well within the scope of the motion to include them.
Well, that would be absolutely the plan. You want to include every party, as Lisa had mentioned, that's involved. You want to make sure everybody has a say and they're involved in the discussion. We have an open house of some sort that they can put their ideas on a map, an acetate, and Councilor Kuhn will get that term.
Okay, now you're dating us all. No, I was thinking more like a smart board.
No, we're going to acetate.
Well, and I just want to mention something here, because I hear what you're saying, but what Brant just said is really important. And we want to make sure that we're not making these kinds of decisions in the silo of the council.
Absolutely, every stakeholder. I'd even love to have Randall's come by and hear what some of the thoughts are from the council, so that they're not reading this for minutes and looking at a map that shows, like I say, a driveway through their property. I'd like them to say, hey, this is what the council is thinking. What are you thinking as far as the future of your property? Because they are an important stakeholder. And if they're saying this is in perpetuity going to be what it is, and we have no interest in participating, great. We need to know that, because that adjusts the design of what we're trying to do.
Well, that goes back to the point of trying to get this done the end of June with those meetings, if we're trying to include multiple stakeholders.
I don't think,
June is just budget.
he just wanted that money to be able to be put in the budget so we could look at it in the next 12
Well,
months.
that wouldn't even be done in June. It's in the budget, and we can finalize that. Now what we have to figure out is what do we take out of the budget to add that in? That's a policy decision here that needs to be decided. Is we're putting 30,000 in, but 30,000 has to come out. Right?
Does it though?
We're not the state of Utah. So
No, I'm just saying.
No, but that's one of the
But we have
things
a
that we've got
generous,
with infrastructure and remaining CARES Act money and ARP.
Again, if you want to use the funds for that, that goes back to the discussion of trying to preserve the CARES Act funding and not spend it and keeping it there for some time. The funding is there.
I think
But again, trying to avoid using fund balance for these types of items, trying to stay within our means should be absolutely our goal. Not tapping into the fund balance every year for one. That's what happens, and it cuts down to 7%.
I understand where you're coming from, and I agree to the extent of, I think it's a great task for our new finance director to figure out how to make it fit without shrinking the budget.
And this is where I'll push back and say, as a council, policy decision to add this in, the policy decision was what comes out.
Well, but I'm not saying it's a quid pro quo. I think there's plenty of funds to leave it in and not do any budget reductions this year.
If we have
You'll have to convince me otherwise.
That's an interesting tie-in to one of our next agenda items.
I know, it's great. So I was hoping for the vote, we could move on.
If I could, just, Mr. Mayor, one last, I do want to show my appreciation to the Randall family. I had a great opportunity to get to know Jenna Lee and the family, and I know this is tough, seeing their family home come down, and I've had a number of conversations with them about it, but I really do appreciate it, and I know Pork wanted this to come to the city, and but just keep in mind that one day they would like to see potentially a pavilion or a Bowery of some sort, and just something recognizing the family. So just want to throw it out there. Great. I learned about the landslide. I learned a lot of history, and a 33-foot stanchion pipe that went into the ground that was put in there and not registered on the state was pretty cool to find too. I don't know how we got a 33-foot, Bruce, right? We don't know how we got 33-foot stanchion pipe down down in
The
the-
sledgehammer. His daughter said he pounded it in.
crazy.
Sledgehammer
I know
broke-
pork, I have
He was-
no
he
doubt
was
about
awesome.
how it got there.
So awesome. Anyway, thank you
What
very much.
was it there for?
A well. He was getting water out of it.
Yeah.
33 feet deep. When our
Yeah.
well came in, according to Jenna Lee, when our well was built, that mud dried up.
24 feet of water down below the 13 feet of rock.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, thank
Sounds like a splash pad.
We need to finish a vote because we did, Bruce, you know we're going ahead with lawn. That was one motion, but the second motion, we halfway through it till we started having further discussion, so we need to finish that vote on the second motion. Everybody okay still voting about it? Or is he clear on it? Or do we need?
Yes, but I'm very satisfied with the extended discussion, so thank you.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that motion passes unanimously. Hey, Bruce, thanks for joining us. Any other questions on that? Are you clear?
I guess we'll answer the rest of them in our work session, how we pay for the sprinkler system and grass.
We thought you were donating your time.
I have a park strip. You're welcome to all the grass in it.
Mine's coming out too.
Even with free labor, it's still going to cost quite a bit to just buy all the stuff we need.
So, Bruce, so you know we did move, I believe, $30,000 to $50,000 from the RDA to 40,000 in there from the RDA to help pay for that landscaping. So you do
Okay,
have a budget
great.
there. So get with Nate and or Jacob.
Great. Okay, I'll have some cost estimates for our work sessions.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, let's move to item number 8. This is discuss truth in taxation. This was brought up a couple weeks ago. The city is looking for, thank you, everybody, for coming today and your presentations. We just brought up a couple weeks ago, the city's looking for some guidance from council as far as about the going through a truth in taxation process to increase the revenue received through property taxes. In our information, they provided in our packet some information of what 10, 14, 20, 30, 40% raise looks like. I had asked this, I started getting concerned. I know 2 weeks ago I was 50-50, then I said, but I think we need to do it. But I'm still not convinced where all the ARP funds can go and that sort of thing. So, and we haven't had the study from the chief yet, which he said was 6 months out. So I think we're gonna have my personal opinion, a heck of a time convincing the residents that there's money, that all this money we're bringing in, what it's being spent on. If we feel we can overcome that, then maybe my mind will be changed. But anyway, I threw my opinion right out in the front, but it's for all of us to discuss. And the staff's looking for guidelines on what to bring forward to us for the truth in taxation. So I'll open it up.
Well, in response to convincing the citizenry, I mean, in reviewing what we put out last time, it's, in my mind, almost as simple as the information that even last time when we did it, it had been 20 years, and to get us up to where we were 20 years earlier, we would have had to raise 75%. So even at that time, we didn't get us to the point of being able to catch up from all those years of basically losing money. And in my mind, we can say that this is purely even just a roads need, and people driving the roads know and feel that. And it is just very expensive to keep up with the infrastructure under the roads, and we've just, with that 20 years of no hike, we just got ourselves behind. We got ourselves in a pickle.
That's really hard to say when we got $1.2 million last year and 1.9 million this year. We're not where we were back then. We didn't have the money. We did need the money. I don't understand. I mean, I can't tell the residents without saying to them, you know what, I have a problem. We got 102 million, we've got 109 million, and I want to tax you, you're getting
102
stimulus.
million, 109 million.
Or
1.2 million, 1.9
Yeah.
million.
I
Okay.
just wanted to keep things a little
Right.
closer.
So I'm like, I can't tell residents, we got this money, and now we need another 300,000, 400,000 from you from your property tax this year. Maybe in a year or two, maybe we can. I can't look at a resident in the face and say, this is not a problem, and I think you're gonna have, we're not united, and that information is gonna be put out there. I feel, I can't morally vote for it with the kind of money that we have. We have more money right now than we've ever had. We're having to create more accounts for the money to keep the money that we have. We want to be able to give the staff more money. How are you going to give raises and then turn around and say, oh, well, we need to raise your taxes or bonuses, or I don't think we can do it and then still do what we want to do with that money.
Can you repeat what you just said, because I'm not sure.
Well, I'm thinking if we look at some of the things that money can be used for, it can be used for salaries and some of these things that, and if you use that for the salaries, you can use some of that money for something else. You can use the rescue money for things we were going to have to pay for anyway. And then we can use that money to put where we couldn't have used the rescue money. I morally can't do it. And so I feel bad because as a resident, I would really be upset. And so I just want us to be careful and look at the amount of money that we have right now. We don't have, staff's not pushing it, our police chief's not pushing it. I don't know where we're coming from. I just really, I'm really struggling with the amount of money we have. I'm with the mayor. I think you're going to hard sell to the residents. And no, we can't put out the same information we put out last time. I'm going to insist that we're honest with what we're putting out.
I think we can be honest with it. ARP funding is restricted in use. There's only certain things it can be used for.
Right, but if we use that for what we need,
But-
then we're
but
going to be
we-
able to take that and put it where we can't use the money.
But we have ongoing needs, though, that we already know that construction costs are at an all-time high. That education piece is pretty easy. All you have to do is open any paper and you know that construction costs are high, labor costs are continuing to go up, and our problem is that, yes, we have a pile of cash right now that can be used for specified purposes, but we have an ongoing need. It's the same fallacy of the checks that have been coming out, from the federal government. The stimulus check does not change most people's overall financial picture. Sure, they can go out, and a lot of people haven't even used that money well. I was at a dealership and talking to a guy, and he says, yeah, people have come in and said, I have my Biden bucks. What can I get with this as a down payment? Not even thinking about the future. So I think it's very prudent for us to look at it from the standpoint of that is very ephemeral, it's going away, and that does not solve the long-term need, and we need to be looking at the future of what that need is, and we need to buffer that, because if we get behind with inflation, getting ready to hit us pretty hard, all these costs going up and the costs skyrocketing in Utah, in labor markets everywhere, I just don't know that I can say to a resident, hey, we didn't anticipate any of this stuff, and we didn't know that we weren't going to need this money. We do know that we're going to need it, and that we have these ongoing costs that are going to continue to hit us. And I'm more concerned that we're going to be behind again, and we're going to be even further behind because of all these external pressures that are pushing us. But I'm not an economist. I'm looking to others, because we talked about the police as being one of the primary reasons, but Tammy's point is very valid in terms of just roads, maintenance, and I'm sure the cost of buying plastic piping for the irrigation has gone up. I know that it took me 8 months to get a vinyl fence because there weren't petroleum products available to even make the vinyl. So everything's gone up in price. I don't know how we can say no.
What's going to happen with asphalt, with what's happening with oil, and what's going to happen with plastic?
I agree with that. I just want to wait and see what's going to happen before I up my residents' taxes, because they're never going to come back down. And right now, I don't feel like we need it. In 2 years, we say, look, this money went here, this money went here. We have gotten a lot of things that we would not have been able to get. We've played catch up with this money. So before it was like, we need to redo this, we need to redo that. We've done all of that. And so we're way farther ahead than we were when we did the tax increase.
But some of those
before.
things, Robin, are like the IT spends, we did that all in one bulk spend. That's actually bad for us because that means everything wears out at the same point.
Same time.
So because we don't have the ability to incrementally spend, we're moving some problems into the future, and that could be a future council or, 3 or 4 years down the road. But when those items wear out, if we don't have the funds available to replace that, this shot in the arm didn't help us. It actually hurt us further down the road by giving us an artificial sense of security. That's my concern.
My issue is that we're not keeping up with inflation.
It's that simple.
And that we need to do something. And I'm not proposing to go to the 40%. I'm not trying to do that. But we need to do something to keep up with inflation, because otherwise we put ourselves between a rock and a hard place on a long-term basis. And in my mind, the 14.5% is the number. Yeah, it's a $28 increase on the median home, on the average home. Upper end home, it's going to be $100. It's minuscule, and the effective amount has come down by that much. And someplace in here it quotes an 11.1% on the same service levels. I question 11.1%. You look at the increases that we did with the wage study 2 years ago. You look at everything that's staring us in the face. I think it's more than that. As I've talked to people, we don't all run in the same circles, and I'm not talking to a lot of people who are on a fixed income and seriously feeling a pinch, and I acknowledge that. I don't know what to do about it, but as I've talked to people, the people that I've talked to, when I've explained it, aren't opposed. And that's the reason I feel what I feel.
I don't disagree that inflation is going up. I don't disagree that we're going to need the money in the future. But I can't look at somebody and say, I'm wanting to raise your taxes today because next year I'm going to need it. I feel like our responsibility as stewards of the public funds is to do the best job we can with the money we have, and when that becomes no longer possible, then we go and say, we need more money. And I see that coming in the flip order from.
But we are saying that. We're saying with the inflationary pressures, the cost pressures, we already aren't meeting those needs. We're behind where we need to be. I think that,
I don't feel behind. I don't feel behind enough. Maybe it's because I'm talking to different people. I live in an area of town with a lot of people who are retired, a lot of people on fixed incomes, and, it's not a lot of money if you have a slush fund that can cover that. But if you don't, it's huge.
And I acknowledge that, and I also feel very sensitive to that. When we talked about this before, we had several people who basically could not understand why we would need to do this, and that we're on fixed income, that we talk to individually, and it's painful. But the flip side of that same argument is that your income, whatever that is, you still expect services to come from your city. You still expect the fire department to show up. You still expect the police department to show up. You still want the water to run and be clean and healthy for you. And I think it's fair to say, without much contradiction, nobody in this room believes that prices are going to drop on anything. We have now hit our new plateau of where things are, and they're going up. I don't see a vendor growing a big heart and saying, you know what, I did a lot of profit taking during 2021. I feel so bad I'm reducing my prices back to a pre-2020 level. It's not going to happen. I think we're facing a new reality of is that where we are is what goods are gonna cost. I mean, take, for example, fuel prices. You've seen where they're at. Now, Utah historically lags and then precedes the rest of the market around the country. We know that. But think about our vehicle budget right now. How much in percentage did our cost of just providing the basic service for the police department go up in fuel costs alone? So if you take all these in aggregate and you say 10% here, 5% here, 30% for this particular good and service, you're behind. You're already behind. And then, as Brent was skillfully pointing out,